If your child is struggling in school with reading, writing, focus, concentration and homework, there's probably a missing link in the brain that no one's telling you about, but that you need to know about in order to help your child. Your child is not lazy, not stupid, not behaving badly. Your child desperately needs help, and the help needs to address the brain.
It's really scary that so many children are misunderstood. They're called labels, they're called names, and the assumption is that children that are struggling are stupid. In actual fact, it's often the opposite that's true. We all know that there's many millionaires and billionaires dropping out of school and going on to have huge success. So is it rather that the education system is misunderstanding what intelligence is? Well, we've worked with a lot of children and we've got some great news for you, because there is hope. There is something that can be done to find what is really lurking in the back of these children's mind, waiting to be discovered.
I remember my lowest point in life, where my son was so troubled. He would yell, he would scream, he would bite, he couldn't learn, he couldn't love, he couldn't have any physical contact with us. This child was so troubled that all of our friends said, please put him in an institution, because he's going to ruin you and he's going to ruin your family. But I'm a journalist and I'm also a mom, and I could not give up on my own child. So I used my ability to research to go around the world and find a solution for him. Long story short, it actually happened. I found the solution for him. And not only did it save him, it saved me, and I wrote a best-selling book about it. And since then I've helped parents, thousands of parents all over the world, to go down the same track and help their children, because it is possible. Don't give up on your child, ever.
My story started when my daughter had gone through school and learned almost nothing. She clearly was intelligent in some ways, but learning for her was so difficult. She couldn't read, she couldn't write, concentration was hard for her, making friends at that time was hard for her, and eventually she became suicidal. And I'll never forget that phone call when I was told that she'd attempted to take her life. And I remember racing to the hospital, rushing, worrying, thinking what was going to happen. And I remember making the commitment on that journey that if she lived, I would dedicate the rest of my life to finding out what the root cause of her problem was. I'd been a successful entrepreneur, disruptive in various industries, finding innovative solutions. Now I'd got the biggest challenge of my life. My own precious daughter was lying in hospital. They were trying to save her life. And for me, it was a massive change in direction. As mercy would have it, she lived. And I started that new quest. And my journey, also separately to Ninka's, but in the same kind of mission, went around the world looking for research. And I found the most amazing research that hadn't yet, and still hasn't yet, been generally shared with people. The kind of research that can change people's lives in the most exciting and fundamental way. So when I discovered this, of course, we started on the quest to change Susie's life for the better. And now she can read and she can write and she's much happier. And life for her has become much more rosy, and she's now on a positive upward journey. And then I was introduced to Ninka and found that our journeys were similar. We'd both worked hard, scouring the world for the latest research because we wanted to save our children. Ninka had focused much more on nutrition as well as brain development. I'd focused totally on the brain, and we realized our life purpose was the same. We realized that all we had learnt fitted together. And so when we fell in love and put our lives together, we put our quests together, and that's this journey that we want to share with you right now.
I know all about being called into school meetings, talking to experts, getting told that there's no hope for my child, he'll never be able to learn. But my child is actually thriving in school. He's gotten over all of his problems. He's an empathic, talented, completely normal young man today. So from that experience, I just want to say there's a complete misunderstanding when it comes to these children who are struggling. And that misunderstanding has to do with the brain and eye tracking.
The biggest misunderstanding around these children is to do with their ability to read, or rather their lack of ability to read. And so many automatically assume that poor reading means low levels of intelligence. Well, maybe very occasionally that's the case, but in the vast majority of cases, the thing that stops children reading is poor eye tracking. Poor eye tracking is caused by incomplete development at the back of the brain here. So if eye tracking is poor, it means that they see the letters of every word in a scrambled order. No wonder they struggle with spelling, because every time they see a word, they see the letters in a different order, and sometimes they see the letters backwards, so sometimes they write them backwards. So it's nothing to do with levels of intelligence. In actual fact, it's often the reverse, and often you find children who are very bright struggling with reading. Sometimes they drop out of school and then they go on to become millionaires or billionaires. And so we have misunderstood these children, very often very bright, huge potential, and yet eye tracking is stopping them do that simple but all-important task of reading.
And in the next video, we're going to show you exactly how you can test your child's eye tracking. And even we're going to give you a pen exercise so that you can test if this is actually the issue for your child. So that was the case for my child, who was actually genius in some ways and misunderstood in so many other ways. So it was not just me misunderstanding my child, the teachers, the experts misunderstanding him completely. There's another big misunderstanding in this whole mess where children are struggling in school, and that misunderstanding is about the cerebellum, a part of the brain.
Yes, it's a very important part of the brain, and again it's a misunderstood part of the brain, because the cerebellum is responsible for the development of all of our skills, all the things we do automatically and effortlessly. So if something as simple as eye tracking never becomes automatic and effortless, it means that things like reading become very hard. And so all of the processing that should be automatic is filling the working memory of that child, which means that it's really hard work for them. And when they've worked out what they are trying to read, they've got nowhere to store it, because that working memory is full of processing that should not and need not be there. So the cerebellum here at the back, it's so important. Neuroscientists often call it the brain within the brain, and it's the bit that hardwires up the rest of the brain. So if your child is struggling with reading, please look upon him or her in a different way. Maybe it is they're much brighter than you realize. Maybe you've even seen some signs of that and are puzzled about why they can't read. Maybe the teachers have worked very hard with them with all sorts of programs to help them read, but it still leaves them working very hard and struggling, and maybe they never pick up a book for pleasure. Well, now look upon all these things in a different light. Maybe this bit of the brain at the back is the root cause, the missing link that we've all been looking for.
So in the next video, we're going to give you a specific test so that you can find out whether eye tracking is an issue for your child. We're also going to give you a very interesting pen test, because there are more than one clue that you can look into to determine whether this is actually something that's important for both you and your child to know.
Also in the next video, we're going to clear up another misunderstanding, that is why so many of these children that struggle at school actually have big problems with concentration. What's going on? Are they lazy? Are they choosing to not concentrate? No, we've got some really exciting news for you, so stay tuned next time. Meanwhile, please leave your comments, your questions, and even your stories below. We're looking forward to seeing them and looking forward to seeing you next time.